Wait, oh my God, this was unexpected. If you've ever looked for a custom keyboard before, you've probably heard of Cherry switches, but you also might have heard that they aren't very good. So then why am I incredibly excited about this big switch? Okay, it's because it has a lot of small switches. Cherry just did something really cool.
Howdy, hey, I'm Hipyo Tech, and I try keyboards and switches so you don't have to. And in my quest to find the best keyboards, I've tried hundreds of different switches. So when Cherry MX told me, hey, Hipyo, we listened, we made better switches, you know, I had to give them a try. So in this video, I'm trying the new Cherry MX switches, I'm giving them a shot in a custom keyboard build, and I'll also be comparing them to some older Cherry switches, and maybe some switches that you might want to get instead. But stick around. Speaking of sticking around, if you want to stick around a little bit longer, then maybe join my Discord with the link down below, or hit the subscribe button.
Now this is the Northern Lights switch from Cherry Extremify? They've been experimenting. And, sorry, this is the Northern Lights switch. It's a little bit smaller, which is not what she said. It's not, I swear. Now you're probably like, wait, Hipyo, Cherry's already upgraded all of their switches. Haven't you heard of the MX 2.0 line? And yes, I heard about it, and it was so underwhelming that I didn't even bother making a video.
However, I did make a live stream if you're interested in my thoughts on those. I've got a link in the top right. It was like 4 hours though, so good luck.
But don't worry, I have hundreds of those switches because I thought they'd be good. But they've been hard at work. This arrived in the mail. It was, I didn't ask for it actually, and I didn't even know it was happening. I don't even know how they got my address, but I'm excited. Let's take a look.
Now, if you're brand new to keyboards, you're probably wondering, Hipyo, what makes a switch good? What is a good keyboard switch? Well, there's sound, there's feel, there's price, and there's also, is it pretty and cute and pretty? Some ways that people can make keyboard switches better is by lubing them by hand or at the factory. Don't screenshot this NFT, by the way. And speaking of factory, I have some interesting news about Cherry's factory that I'll be sharing later in this video. It's really devastating.
Now, here's the first bummer. This really cool switch package, that's only for me, so sorry. Now, in order to determine if Cherry's new switch is actually worth buying, we have to determine a few very important things. Number one, is it any good? Number two, if it is good, is it even affordable? And then number three, why did it take them so long? Aren't they the biggest switch manufacturer? Why did it take you so long? Interestingly enough, they decided to opt for a silent switch design here, which could be a very good thing because silent switches have actually become the most popular keyboard switch. Like, literally, you guys can't stop asking for more videos on them. But then, will these be as silent as a library? Will they get you not kicked out of your day job? Let's find out.
Now, later in this video, I'll be comparing these switches to some of the other Cherry switches and some other silent switches. But first, let's dive into the statistics. Are these switches worth buying based on what Cherry tells you they're worth? And is there some super special thing about them, and that's why it took them so long to finally make a cool new switch? Oops, we just ran into one big glaring problem.
They're pricey. They are pricey. $30 US for 36 switches. If you're bad at math, that's like 86 cents a switch. I think I'll correct myself on screen if I'm wrong. That's almost double the price of HMX switches. And that's beginning to make me question, even if these switches are incredible, which who knows, maybe they will be. Maybe they'll be kind of thocky, kind of nice, kind of ooh. Why would you buy them if you can get a million other incredible switches for potentially half the price? But let's get them in a keyboard. And in this case, I'm gonna be giving these switches the best shot possible by building them with a Zoom 75. It's just a keyboard that's stereotypically always pretty decent.
Now, the great thing about most custom keyboards nowadays is that most keyboards are hot swappable, meaning I can try out a bunch of different switches without needing to solder or desolder the keyboard. And the Zoom 75 Taiga, which I'll have linked down in the description, is no different, except it's a little bit more of a premium build-it-yourself kind of keyboard. Starting at around $219 US, it is incredibly pretty. I mean, look at that thing. That's gorgeous. It's definitely a gateway drug to spending way too much money on keyboards, so you're gonna have to be careful with it. But after getting everything put together relatively quickly, because it's a pretty beginner-friendly keyboard build, we were ready to put the switches into the plate and PCB. One really nice thing about this board, like some other way cheaper boards that I've looked at, is it has a ball clatch enclosure, meaning that you can take it apart and reopen it with like maybe 5 seconds, which is really nice for something like this where you're just trying out some switches. Now, these switches do have relatively good shine through for RGB. However, they aren't anywhere near as good as some of the switches with that little amplifier. So if RGB is the #1 thing that you care about, these probably wouldn't be it. Now, they do have a relatively nice aesthetic if your keyboard case doesn't hide them, or when you put keycaps on them that also hide them. Because in this case, I'll be using WS white on black for my keycap choice. It's just a decent set of keycaps that's relatively affordable. I figured by building a Zoom 75 and using decent enough keycaps, I'm giving these switches a really strong chance to shine, because any other nice HMX switch would sound and feel absolutely incredible in this build. And Kale switches, and Gatoron switches, and Otemu switches, any other switch.
Now that I've built them with the Zoom 75, the biggest question is, how do they feel? To their credit, it feels pretty smooth. Now, let me get one of these bad boys open real quick. Of course, I need to use their competitor switch opener because this one's just objectively better than theirs. No offense, Cherry. And oh, wait, that's an interesting mechanism. Hold on.
Now, we'll talk more about the sound and feel later, but the thing that makes these really interesting is that they are a take on Cherry's silent switches. Silent switches are often, as the name suggests, relatively silent. However, they're also sometimes really loud, and it all comes down to what kind of dampening mechanism they use. Now, in this case, Cherry opted for, number one, lube, which is really great. The factory lubing here is decently consistent, and I'll talk more about it in a second. And number two, they put something into the stem. Now, from what I can tell, the stem is identical to the Cherry Silent Reds, and then it has a little piece inlaid into it that makes the switch silent, or dare I say, quieter. Now, when comparing it to the rest of Cherry MX's 2.0 line, which was just objectively better than their 1.0 line because they improved a lot of their manufacturing and lubing and all of that, these are objectively better. However, here's a really sad bit of news that I just learned. Here I was just casually reading Cherry's press releases, going about my regular day, and do you see this? Do you see what this says? Now, Cherry just got another round of financing on a contingency of a restructuring concept, which includes the complete discontinuation of Switch production at the Auerbach site and its transfer to a partner in China. In this context, jobs will also be reduced in a socially responsible manner in consultation with the Works Council. Now, some of you might have seen my video where I went to Germany to go visit the Cherry MX factory, and what I just read means that they are shutting down production at that factory. Now, if this ends up being true, it's really, really saddening. A ton of people are going to lose their jobs, the factory's going to shut down, and it's moving to China, where, to be fair, they do make objectively better switches. But that's just some sad news to look forward to, I guess.
Now, I will say, the factory lubing here is quite a bit more than I was expecting. They've got lube on dang near every part of this bad boy. Hot dog! Now, unfortunately, that's the bare minimum that we would come to expect from basically any enthusiast Switch nowadays. And you're probably like, but wait, Hipyo, they already did that on their MX 2.0 line of switches. Well, as I said before, it was a little bit inconsistent at best. You had globs of lube on some switches, way less lube on others, and just in general, it kind of led to a pretty bad experience overall. Like, the switches just didn't stand up to any of the other competition, which kind of made you wonder, what was Cherry thinking? But on this, already, I'm seeing some very meaningful improvements. Like, maybe they've refined their processes at their factory, which I did visit, by the way. Check this out in the top right. Very cool video. God, I miss when everyone made keyboard videos. But I think they've refined some stuff here. These are definitely the smoothest Switch I've ever tried from Cherry. And directly comparing them to any of the MX 2.0 line, why weren't these like this? These would have been so much better if you just made it like this. But then there's still one huge striking issue, and that's the price.
And this is totally subjective, so you could absolutely love these switches. However, if you're looking for a silent switch, then there's so many other options that are about half the price. One option that I've checked out in one of my last videos was the Kale Prestige silent switches that are 16 bucks for 35 switches, almost half the price. Or Wuche Studios silent switches, or literally anything else, honestly. I'll include a couple different options in the sound test at the end. But take it away with the final thoughts, Hipyo.
There's literally no reason to get this Switch. It's a good Switch, but you're probably tight on cash. You're watching a budget-focused keyboard channel. Why would you? I guess I'm glad you made these. For the lovely engineers at Cherry that are watching this, I think this is the best Switch you've ever made. Like, very much so. Good job. Unfortunately, it's a couple years too late. I think keep iterating, keep making better Switches, and I'll be very, very excited to see what you do in the future. But what do you guys think? Is Cherry finally back with their new Switches? Or is this like too little too late? skibbity, skibbity, skibbity.